Hey everybody, Psychosaurus is here. Welcome back to Agent Wars Online. And yes, welcome back to the ranged units talk, or how should I call it? We are going to do Alfheim again with Gastraphetes, but this time it's going to be the Celeste 2025 version. Now, I promise I'm gonna talk about the Celeste changes this time, so if you want to check the classic Gastraphetes, check out my previous video. But today, yes, let's talk about the ranged units buffs like throughout the years. And I tried to look them up like as many as I could, and I could remember. But it's hard, maybe I missed something. But yes, there's been some good number. And just initial word, I dare to say some of those ranged units got so much goddamn love. And if somebody tells me how, or reminds me how Finulfer got nerfed because it made Horseman too strong. After these changes, I have to say it just sounds like a terrible joke to me. And I'm not joking. I mean it. Like goddamn, some of those ranged units got so many buffs. I look at it and I look at the Finulfer nerfs and I'm like, yeah. What a terrible joke. Anyway, I decided to split this into two parts, the eras, I should say. So this would be before the release of the Piercing Frost arrows and after release of Piercing Frost arrows, because I dare to say that would be the one point, where I dare to say before it would be some buffs, but at the same time not super crazy, and afterwards that's gonna be where I feel it's just been some I dare to say some stupid buffs, even goddamn, but yeah, some super powerful buffs to some degree. Anyway, so before Piercing Frost, okay, so from what I remember, there has been definitely some gear added in the Project Celeste. Most typically Master Hunter, whether it's bow or belly bow, choose whichever one. Then it would be the Curse of the Archer Javelin. But overall, I have to say these would be completely fine in my book, although maybe a little bit taking a look at the numbers, but I have to say, yeah, okay, at least they were legendary versions of already existing item, I was using the belly bow, the Zeus belly bow on my Gastras. Where are you? This one. So basically, Master Hunter belly bow would be legendary version of this, except slightly higher damage and movement speed instead of critical hit chance right here. So not completely terrible, but it would be definitely something a small buff, especially the movement speed. Remember, Gastras can easily move, unlike the other ranged units that need to stop, stand still to attack, Gastras just attack and then they can move, so the movement speed was definitely a buff for them. And yes, then we could also include Marduk's bow, which I was still surprised, it kind of fit it into this part. But yeah, Marduk's bow definitely, I dare to say, the attack rate could help a lot of ranged units, Toxodes, Celtic Bowmen, with their really low attack rates, so they need to stand for a long while before they attack. Attack rate definitely does not sound bad, in those cases. So I have to say Marduk definitely helped, and also comparing the stats with the Master Hunter bow, it definitely offers better damage output, but still it's damage, attack rate, so it depends, sometimes you could use more damage, sometimes you could use more attack rate, so it would depend. We also got some arrows with range, which will be the Arrows of Darkness, so damage, range, bonus versus infantry. Then there would be Brenos, craftable legendary arrows with range and critical hit chance, and I dare to say if you get lucky, you can get even better stats than the Actaeon arrows at the Cyprus Legendary Store. But the issue I see with Brenos arrows is because of the crit chance, because now you're relying on the critical hit being applied. And second thing would be like when you go with ranged death balls, there is like one thing, or one thing occurring during those ranged death balls, and that could be like one of the worst things about the ranged death balls. It is the overkill damage, which means like when you have multiple units of those ranged units attacking the same target, there could be like some damage that's actually being wasted on a unit that's already dead, because it just been attacked by multiple units. It died within like first few arrows, and then the rest of the arrows are just flying there doing nothing, That's then overkill damage, and that could be a problem. Now imagine if you have the critical hit chance, those arrows now do more damage, and because they do more damage, there's a potential to actually waste even more damage, So at that moment, like, yeah, Brenos sure sounds nice, but at the same time, like you're likely to waste more damage now, That can happen, But okay, those exist. And then there would be like one very important arrows, and I would say these are actually very important to mention. The Ice King arrows. Why those? Because those would offer you damage, range, and snare. And because of the snare stat, remember what I said in my previous video, make sure to check that one out. The H3 advisors you would choose would be Cosmas or Onesiphorus, most likely, when going with the ranged death balls. One, giving you the snare, making it easier for your ranged units to survive, keep the enemy units away from you. And the other one would be Onesiphorus, which would allow you, usually reach H4 and get access to your ranged units and the tags that you need for those. So yeah, with the Ice King arrows, most likely either you make them with Cosmas even stronger, or you can ignore Cosmas and just go with Onesiphorus. Completely viable, both. But the thing is, Ice King arrows actually got released after a certain advisor, which I'll get to in a moment. So yes, it would be possible to go with those, but there would be another advisor, and I dare to say because of the Ice King arrows, Cosmas became kind of redundant at that moment, So if you ask me, Cosmas was always good. It is just items that were added to the game made him redundant. That's my opinion. Then, of course, there will be some arrows with damage, which will be like Apple Fist arrows with damage and bonus versus cavalry, and Xerxes with pure damage and line of sight. Really good damage, of course. Now, in those two cases, those are other situations. A lot of players will just go with the range, because, yeah, if you want range death ball, you go with the maximum range because you want to properly utilize the high numbers and you want to make sure to keep them safe. So range would be more important. So these two arrows would be rather on the other ranged units, like you have the front line, you want to support them. Apple Fist, you would use that if you want to counter cavalry better. Or Xerxes if you just want damage overall. But I dare to say a lot of players would just pick the range arrows anyway, because what would be the point of having these if you can keep your range units even further away from the battle, safer behind the front line, But yeah, those were options. Then we of course got the advisors. And there's been some good amount of advisors. Now I'm thinking, where should I take it from? I'll take it from H2, okay? Because H1, yeah, no military advisors there really. Only a few exceptions, but not for ranged units. So H2, that would be the addition of Odin for the Norse and Timon rework. Now Odin, yes, for the Norse. Now I don't know how many times you would go with, like Norse ranged units, because in my opinion, Norse ranged units, they can do some nice job, but at the same time, they are not really the strongest. But okay, Odin would make it easier for you to spam them because, hey, free wood income, like who would want that? Timon rework. Now, Timon used to be only the train time advisor, like the other sergeants. So with the rework, there would be first the change to reduce the cost of those ranged units. So that would be that. Okay, you want to make your ranged units cheaper. In some cases, this would be very nice. Like for example, if you prefer like, you know, let's say chariots don't have enough range, so you will be taking damage, you'll be losing few. Then Timon would help you. You know, like replace those chariots for much lower cost. That would be definitely nice. It would be definitely an option. Still, I dare to say like Guyana would be more dominant in H2, but hey, at least something more viable, you know, at least a little bit, you know, than just the training time. Okay, H3. Now here again for the Norse, there would be Thorhild, although she used to be like quite bad, you know, like not the worst, okay, but what she would do would be increase the Norse ranged units HP and maximum range. I don't remember. Was it before? Was it? I think she used to be actually HP movement speed, and then she got changed to maximum range and movement speed. I think that's what she used to be. I got the notes. I forgot to write down the exact details, but yeah, I have like, you know, she used to buff HP and then maximum range. So yeah, she would be there, but you know, like sacrificing the H3 for Thorhild wouldn't be completely ideal, because there would be another very important advisor that was added with Celeste, and I dare to say this one would be actually very important, because that would make a lot of the range dev balls, like for example the Gastraphetes, much better at destroying buildings, and that's Sohrab. Yes, so if I may say, Sohrab was like the main thing that kind of made the Cosmos redundant completely, you know, because a lot of times, like if you consider Gastraphetes, you saw me play Gastraphetes in my last video, there would be no problem with killing the ranged units. Like, okay, maybe I lose a few Gastras, that's completely fine, I can replace them, you know, but they still do more than enough damage to kill the ranged units. The main thing that was slowing me down was the amount of buildings I had to destroy, the walls I had to get through, the towers, the fortresses, you know. It would take forever, because there would be like hundreds of thousands of HP worth in buildings, like goddamn. It would take forever just to destroy those buildings. It wouldn't be like, okay, I could still destroy them somewhat fast for a ranged unit, but let's be honest, Sohrab helped with the building destruction so much. There would be like no need to go with Cosmos. Honestly, first would still be an option, but let's be honest, getting H4 sooner or for cheaper, lower cost, would not be definitely like comparable to 50% extra damage against buildings for your ranged units. Like, let's be honest, 50% more damage against buildings, that would speed up questing so much. That would be like, yes, this would be now the dominant, and the other two advisors are now redundant, you know. Well, Cosmos is definitely redundant. Honestly, for us, definitely not that needed anymore, you know. Or not that useful, I should say. So yeah, Sohrab, in my opinion, was one of those big changes for your ranged units that would make them really powerful these days. But still, like, okay, he was 50%. I dare to say, okay, it helped. But that's not the worst thing, let's be honest. Moving on, H4. So for H4, we got Ambiorix for the Celts, adding the extra crit damage for the ranged units. Completely fine overall. If you have like 50%, if you would have like 50% crit chance, Ambiorix would increase the overall damage of your ranged units by 33% on average, you know. So it wouldn't be like super bad, let's be honest. So Ambiorix completely fine. Celtic ranged units, like, yeah, sure, they are powerful, you know, but I still do not consider them to be like so powerful on their own, you know, like it wouldn't be that bad. Okay, next one would be the Ptolemy's rework, finally, because Ptolemy's was pretty bad. Just 30% infantry armor for your Toxotes and Gastraphetes. Let's be honest, like those two units are supposed to kill infantry units, not tank them. So they're not tanks. So yeah, it was pretty meh advisor at that point. So after the rework, there was a change that he granted those two units infantry and siege damage, bonus damage, and then also the splash damage protection, 50% only. So if you ask me, a lot better change, definitely. But let's be honest, those like Gastraphetes did not need the extra infantry damage because they would already kill infantry units super fast. So even then, like, okay, unless you go for quests where there's a lot of infantry and siege units, Ptolemy might not be really good that much. In case of Toxotes, there would be other advisor, that would be much more useful than this. We'll get to that. So again, like, nice change, but overall, unless you go against a lot of infantry and siege units, which in a lot of Celeste quests, you don't see only those two unit types, let's be honest. You see a lot of cavalry and ranged units as well. And in that case, Ptolemy is not really gonna help you that much. Splash damage protection would be nice, but usually, hey, if you have the long range on your Gastras, don't care. So, okay change, but let's be honest, not that useful. Still. And now for the legendary advisors that were added for your ranged units. So, as I mentioned with the Toxotes, there was one advisor that would be much better, and that's Alexander the Great. So 30% attack rate and maximum range, although I believe that this was actually buffed at one moment as well from 20%. So 30% for your Toxotes and Peltast. So yes, for your Toxotes, definitely great. Peltast, like, okay, they got this buff, but let's be honest, Peltast still don't do enough damage, like, to kill units. And in my opinion, that's completely fine if they don't do enough damage, because I feel like they're better if they just soak a little bit of the damage, like, they can take some beating, So I would prefer if it was like, Peltas like more at the front, soaking the damage, while Toxotes is behind them, dealing the damage. I feel like that would be more interesting. But okay, Alexander, range, attack rate for those two units definitely helped a lot. But I dare to say, like, Peltast, you would most likely not use, you would still focus more on the Toxotes, and I dare to say it would be still better to have some front line with this build, like Hoplites or Hippospists. Okay, next one would be like Rostam, which he buffed Takabaras originally, and I think this was range and line of sight originally. Then he got rework and then included also some attack rate. Okay, nowadays, of course, Takabaras are not included anymore. But there was like one more advisor, I skipped him. H4 advisor Kavek, that actually granted those ranged units 10% ignore armor for the Persian range, or like Persian army overall, 10% ignore armor for all military units in that case, which definitely helped, like the ranged units, but like Persian ranged units, I feel like they are strong, but they are not really strong enough on their own, like they can do the job, but I feel like it's just better to go with some frontline because they just never do enough. But okay, back to the legendary ones. So yeah, Rostam would be there. Then there would be Comontorios, who buffed the Carpentoms and Horsemen. But yeah, Carpentoms would be there with the health, damage, bonus versus buildings. Good buff in my opinion, like further supporting, like, hey, get close with the health, do the damage, they can always run, And then super fast at destroying buildings, like, remember the Sohrab, and then also you have the right, a lot of damage to buildings for the Carpentos, at least for a limited time, at least there was like time limit for that. But yeah, you still needed to get close. So in my opinion, this was actually like carpentones done right, you know, like this felt actually really good. Then there would be Biorix, but it was after rework because originally Biorix would grant passive gold income, and later he would get reworked to buff the bowmen and mainly skirmishers, like giving more than double damage to skirmishers, which they were still useless, let's be honest. Like, goddamn, you don't see that buff. Why? Because skirmishers are so terrible that even 100% extra damage is not gonna make them great. That's how they are, let's be honest. And now the final advisor, legendary, which I have to mention because this would be the first seriously, like, the most overpowered advisor at the time. And I still consider him to be one of the most overpowered advisors in the game. And that's Sargon. I still consider him to be the most powerful advisor. 30% attack rate and maximum range for your chariot archers and war chariots, Babylonian. And then war chariots would also get extra splash radius on their attacks, which used to be 2, by the way. It used to be 2 splash area, later nerfed to only 1. But let's be honest, let me change something here a little bit. Okay, if you just compare it like to what Sargon does, like 30% is just a lot, you know. Okay, now he's a little bit weaker with the war chariots, but let's be honest. Let's take a look at the chariot archers, you know, like the base range 22. Now with Sargon 28.6, like goddamn. Then you have the damage, you know, going from 25 to 32.5. That's really huge, you know, with all the range. Goddamn. And remember, we got the Master Hunter bow, we got the Ice King's arrows. There was also, like, you know, like the Vishkanya, originally called the Divine High Vizier, which was legendary version of the High Vizier cloth armor for full damage. So that would be another item that would buff ranged units. I didn't mention it, but yeah, again, just legendary version of an item. Small buff there. Master Assassin, again, like small buff there. But if you would just go, you know, Arduino, the High Vizier and the Ramses, you would be almost the same, just slightly weaker, you know. It wouldn't be that bad. But yeah, the Ice King's arrows, this, then include like Sohrab, where are you? Here, you know, and suddenly, yeah, that's a really strong unit, especially once you start including the gear. And easily getting like 44, 45 maximum range on this unit suddenly with the gear. Like if I just put it there, Master Hunter, let's go, like, what is the Ice King? I am missing something. Guyana. Where are you, Guyana? There you are. So yeah, like, look at this. Just because of this advisor, these chariots suddenly get one of the highest attack range in the game for a ranged unit. They got here. This is one of the reasons the chariots became suddenly super popular. Easy attack range, good enough damage to kill enemy ranged units before they even reach them. Like, easily, like, remember what I said about the Gastraphetes before? Like, I would consider them to be the strongest. After this, these would be the strongest. And let's be honest, these became the best ranged units and the easiest to use at the same time. Just because you got this one advisor, you would win basically with chariot archers. Like, getting the range bow and arrows wouldn't be a problem. There are few that there's a bow you can buy, there's an arrow you can buy, you know. Getting the range, no problem. So yeah, suddenly the most overpowered range unit in the game. War chariots, sure, buff was there, the splash was there, but they used to be a lot worse, you know, like 20 DPS was their base DPS, you know. That's what they used to be like. It was pretty bad, okay? But we'll get to that. But yeah, let me remove these again. Real quick. And okay. So yeah. Sargon, in my opinion, that was the first thing that made the ranged dev balls through the Babylonian chariots super overpowered. And then there would be another thing about the Babylonian chariots, which would be the change to their champion upgrade. Would you believe it that their champion upgrade used to cost 800 gold and would grant them minus 50% cost and minus 20% HP? Now, if you ask me, this became completely redundant after the Sargon as well. Because now, if you have that long range, you're not really gonna take the damage. So if you're not taking the damage, there is no need to replace the units. So if you're not replacing the units, what's the point of making them cheaper, you know? And if you're replacing just a few, still, why would you make them cheaper, you know? Just to lose the 20% HP? Yeah, not really worth it, right? So if you ask me, Sargon made this champion upgrade pretty bad at the same time, you know? So it got reworked. Now it costs 1000 gold. It reduces the cost by 20%. But now grants 25% pierce armor and 30% line of sight. So with that huge range, now you see really far away as well. So huge buff. Hang on. I'm just looking. What? Huh. Interesting. Whatever. I'll get to that later. But yeah, now you see, you have that huge range. You see far away. Pretty huge, you know, like now you see you can actually fully utilize the attack range. Pierce armor, remember, before you would lose HP 20%, now you're getting 25% pierce armor. So in comparison to previous champion chariots and after chariots, like we are talking going from 80% of total HP to 125 HP against pierce damage, which is going to be the main damage that you will take with those chariots if the enemy range units can actually get close. So, yes, more than 50% HP buff for your chariots against pierce damage. That's how huge this champion upgrade actually is now in comparison to the previous one. So, if you ask me, huge buff. Like, after the Sargon, there is less need for the cost. So the pierce armor and line of sight definitely help a lot more to keep your ranged units alive, you know. Again, it helps to keep them alive. So yes, if you ask me, Babylonian chariots are one of those units that got some serious love. They've been OP ever since Sargon got released. But no, we got the nerf Finulfer, you know. We got the nerf Finulfer. Yes. The most dominant ranged unit ever since their legendary advisor got released. But no, we got a nerf Finulfer because horseman. Yeah, sure. Anyway, there would be one more thing, and there would be the Bahram lottery with the Bahram items. Now, this one is rather like super late game, so I'm not really gonna consider it like super strong buff. They exist, however, so you can still make your ranged units a lot stronger, whether it's through the boots or the gauntlet or gloves or whatever it's called. So yes, you would have an option to make your ranged units even more powerful, whether it would be just adding the movement speed, you know, like Gastras with extra movement speed or the chariots with extra movement speed. That would definitely help, you know. But yeah, luckily those items are like super expensive, or you would have to be super lucky to get the item, you know. So not really like worried about those too much, but they do exist, you know, so it's still a thing. And now we are getting to the Piercing Frost Arrows release. Yay! So this will be Winter 2022. Now, one thing I need to mention, because there would be Assure's arrows released in Summer Event 2022, which granted some damage, range, and then like it was like 7.4 or something like that, bonus versus buildings. And let's be honest, like, it was a nice buff, but it was pretty small, you know? And then we got the Piercing Frost Arrows released Winter Event 2022. So it would be less than 6 months to make the Assure's arrows absolutely redundant, completely useless at that moment. Because all you would need would be these arrows. Like, these arrows completely overshadowing the Assure's arrows, you know? Like, suddenly, yes, those Assure's arrows, bit of darkness. So dark because of the Piercing Frost arrows. Why? Because they would grant you the damage, the range, and 6.8% Igno armor. Now that 6.8% Igno armor means for your ranged units more than 25%. I believe it's 27 point something extra damage against buildings. And not only that, because it's Igno armor, it works against everything that has pierce armor. So your typical units as well. So if you ask me, yes, Assure's arrows completely in the dark. Out of nowhere. Just because of these arrows. These arrows, remember, like I was mentioning, the strongest ranged death balls would be like Gastraphetes, would be like chariots, maybe elephant archers. Guess what? All of these using arrows. So guess what? Suddenly you create the best arrows for general purpose, which I dare to say overshadows like even a lot of those bonus damage arrows. Who's gonna get buffed, you know? Like, who got buffed? Let's be honest, who got buffed at the moment? Obviously, everyone who's using the goddamn arrow slots, because now you would have arrows, easy answer, what to use on all of your ranged units. Like, who cares about the snare, you know? Now you can kill them before they can even reach you. And even if you're using your ranged units as a backline, it's still a buff, you know? You are killing the enemy units faster overall, so yeah, good job releasing those arrows. I've been critical towards those arrows ever since they got released. I hate them. They should have been reworked right away, because, or never really made this way, because goddamn, it should either be damage Igno armor or range and Igno armor. But not all three stats. That's just making them the best arrows in the game. And that is like, for ranged units, no better arrows at this moment. These are the best arrows for your ranged units. And it's seriously making me angry. They haven't been changed, no matter what. Okay, then there would be like one extra change, which would be for the entire ranged units. And that would be buffing their maximum range, going for all of them to 20. All of them. And I'll be honest, that is just lazy ass buff, not really trying to think about like what to do with those ranged units at all. It was just lazy, just give them all 20 range. And let's be honest, the strongest ranged death balls just do not care. They can kill those units before they even reach them. Gastraphetes will just kill them. Babylonian chariots will kill them. The Egyptian chariots could kill them, but might also run a little bit further away from them before they actually reach them and attack them. But still, you could kill them before they can actually reach you. So they would not care. So who would care? Actually, those units that cannot kill them fast enough. That's like the only times that this would, like, you know, work against you. But overall, You know, like, hey, it had to happen. If I had to say, if any of those anti-ranged ranged units should got this buff, it would be the North Skirmisher. That one, that unit has only one main purpose, and that's countering ranged units. In that case, I would completely agree with that buff to 20. That if another had to get some buff, yes, I would agree with Greek Peltast, but not with 20. I would say go to 15. That unit has a lot of health, has really good pierce armor, gets some extra movement speed from champion upgrade, and also some extra health. That unit should not be afraid to get, like closer to the battle and be ready to soak some damage. Like, why is this range unit now having more range than Toxotes? Like, why would Toxotes be in front of the Peltast when the Peltast is the one that can soak more damage, That does not make sense to me. And I believe that would be all of them. Let me think. So Peltast, Egyptian Slinger, yeah, seriously, that should have stayed at 18. Celtic Slinger should have stayed at 15. Persian Takabara, that one actually got some reworks where it would just get so much extra range through the champion upgrade, Or, it got buffed to its range. Now the champion upgrade, the archery range upgrade, and the War Academy tech, grant you even more range, Suddenly those Takabaras could easily get over 50 range. So, yeah, in that case, like, it should have stayed. I think it was at 15. I don't want to lie, but I believe it was 15. Because, again, like, good health, good pierce armor, but as you would get more range, yeah, you would lose some health, so it would make sense. They're a little bit further away, But yeah, that one just got some really long range after the change. What am I missing? Babylonians, that should not be afraid to get closer because you get the bonus damage immunity on that one after champion upgrade. And then we got the Norse. Skirmisher would be okay. Romans were out at the time, so those had the 20 range naturally. So in my opinion, I'm okay with that since they do not get the archery range upgrade. They get the champion upgrade, but I'm okay with that because they are not like the strongest anti-ranged unit. So okay with that. Then let's add to the Sargon. War Chariots got reworked. So there were two changes, or like there would be the rework and then one extra together with Carpentomes. War Chariots would get their shield slot. And the rework would be giving them extra damage. So it would go from 20 to 32, so 60% damage output. Already great, if you ask me. I feel like this would be, if this change just happened, I would be like, yes, that's more than enough. But wait, there was more. So they got extra bonus against ranged units. So they went from 4 to 5. So 60% damage, 25% bonus versus ranged, extra. That's a lot of damage, by the way. Their maximum range got increased from 18 to 20, so that would be buffed there. Okay, it's a stable unit. I don't have a problem with that if it's slightly higher. Then their HP got actually changed from 800 to 575, but they also got added 0.5 pierce armor. So overall, they have more HP against pierce damage. So more than, what is this? 1150. This is 1150 HP against pierce damage. So like 350 health extra against pierce damage. And we are talking about war chariots. With the extra damage, it should not be a problem to kill the enemy melee units that are trying to get close to you. Plus you have the speed so you can kite them. And now the only thing that's really threatening you are siege units, which, you know, like siege units, they do a lot of damage, but usually it's because of the splash damage. So not a big problem, especially once you get the champion upgrade to grant like 6 times against them on top of the 60% damage buff. So yeah, killing siege units should not be a problem. And then the ranged units and defensive structures, now you got more health against those. Especially against ranged units, not only that you got the pierce armor, you got the damage boost. Like, these guys can obliterate ranged units. And I just find it so stupid, you know, because that unit, like, takes minimum of melee damage, because they can always kite with all the speed, you know, like, speed there, speed there. Look at that. Super fast. So like, yeah, melee damage, what's that, you know? If they get too close, I kill them. I got 60% damage boost. If they are ranged units, I don't care. If they are towers, I don't care. I can soak all the damage, you know? And then I just throw one javelin and they're dead. Okay, so if you ask me, War Chariots definitely needed some buff to the damage. But overall, the rework, if you ask me, god damn, again, we got it to some degree of the Chariot Archer. Now, it might not be like super fast as the Chariots, because you still do not get the Igno armor through the piercing frost arrows. But because of the splash radius, now it would be nerfed to 1 for Sargon, because otherwise, yeah, that would be like insane if it was still 2, but that doesn't mean that it's not insane anyway. Because of the splash damage, you can actually destroy walls faster, so walls are no obstacle for you anymore. If there are fortresses, you don't care, you can soak the damage. If there are towers, you don't care, you can soak the damage, you know. So if you ask me, yeah, really huge buff for the War Chariots, and definitely making them more powerful than before. And you also got the Marduk's shield. Like, look at this, Sargon plus Marduk's shield in comparison to this. Like, that's almost 50% damage boost. Almost 50% damage boost in comparison to the base damage. That has been buffed. So yeah, if I exclude Sargon, you know, look at this. This is more than 80% damage buff from 20 to 36.67. That's more than 80% damage buff. And I need to include Marduk's shield also got released, okay? But yeah, 80% damage buff. With the rework, the shield slot, huge buff. Huge buff for the War Chariots. Became more useful? Yeah, but again, just because you gave them a shit ton of stats. That's what you did. Celeste deaths, like, yeah, I mean Celeste deaths. Anyway, Carpendoms got also buffed with the extra shield slot. But I would say, you know, like I said before, like, I like them. But yeah, they also got buffed. Then, of course, we also got the Indians and their Blade Chariots. And they got Vishkanya. Advisor, I mean. So, yes, Blade Chariots, like, a unit that's supposed to be like, you know, short range, fast attacking. Yeah, look at the amount of range they're getting. Champion upgrade, Vishkanya. Of course, you can get the gear. That's also possible. Guyana is there. And then, yeah, their choose one tech. Yeah, 15% armor with the 7% from piercing frost arrows, if you get those, of course. If you had some spare one already, yeah, you already got it there. If you did not, maybe they will be coming back this winter. Who knows? Maybe yes, maybe no. I don't know. Like, who knows what the Celeste team has planned for the winter event. But yeah, Blade Chariots are now being added, and they are on the list now, like, of the super powerful range dev ball. And then we got the Absurd Advisor rework quite recently, you know, a few months back. So, if I had to say, Set for the Egyptian chariots got the buff, and if I'm not mistaken, he got buffs before as well. Did I mention him? I don't think I mentioned him. because he used to be only like 20% movement speed, and he got some 20% extra attack range, and I think also line of sight. Now it's just movement speed, I believe, is still there. 35% damage, 35% attack range, yeah. Even stronger, sure. Then buff to Comontorios, the 30% extra range and line of sight for Carpentomes. Why? Because people just don't know how to get closer and are afraid of like some splinters on their chariots. Like, goddamn. And then also Cavarus got buffed, which sure, he is H3, but 15% ignore armor is definitely better than 50% bonus versus buildings. A lot, you know. Then there would be buff to Cosmas, which, in my opinion, who cares? 20% extra movement speed on top of the snare. By the way, that is more movement speed than the advisor for cavalry or infantry units is giving to those. Like for the cavalry, you get only 10%. For infantry, you get 15%. But ranged units, for some reason, need 20% with 20% snare. But why would I do that and lose the 50% bonus versus buildings? Why would I do that? Then there will be the change to Thorhild, who got moved to H2, and now is buffing the skirmishers instead of Beorix. Okay, she's there. Now, I'll be honest, I did not consider it to be really strong, but let's be honest, the buff to the skirmishers is only gonna make them just better against ranged units. Against everything else, sure, they will do more damage, but it's still pretty bad. So if you ask me, yeah, Thorhild, just get some skirmishers to obliterate enemy, let's say Egyptian chariots, you know, because they are annoying in Valley of Kings, so sure, why not? And then also Kepri, you know, like Kepri, hey, there will be like one change, I did not mention it here, for the Elephant Archers, changing their cost from food to wood. Yes, that happened, and I'll be honest, that was like pretty bad move in my book. Because goddamn, why would I go for the Elephant Archers now with the wood cost when Egyptian chariots exist, catapults exist? Seriously, like that change was bad, you know, like it doesn't make sense. Like, why would I invest into fortresses to get the Elephant Archers that now cost wood when I could just go with stables or siege workshops and get those catapults that I don't even need the range damage upgrades, you know? I can just get the catapults and I'm done. Armor upgrades, sure. Or chariots, you know, like stables, a lot cheaper than the goddamn fortresses. So with Kepri, yes, remove that goddamn wood cost, make it all gold. That's basically what's going on now. And I tried it, you know, like, hey, those Elephant Archers feel a lot better now. Even better than with the dedicated advisor, to be honest. At least for me, you know, at least it's more fun for me. And then the last one would be the Ptolemies, which got changed before, actually, before the Absurd Advisor rework. That would be like changing the bonus damages to 8% ignore armor, which in my opinion, like, by the way, that's something I suggested, like giving like the ignore armor. And I think this was actually before even the piercing frost arrows, if I remember, but don't call me on that. I feel like it would be before. But the thing is, you know, like I was considering like 10%, but that would be like my limit, you know. They got 8%. I would be like fine, but then piercing frost arrows exist, you know. Maybe I got like the timeline a little bit wrong here. That's how I remember it, but maybe I'm a little bit wrong here, so don't call me on that. But yeah, make sure to, if you feel like, hey, better check it out, yeah, you can definitely try. Look out for those changes to the Ptolemies. But yeah, Doesn't matter anymore, you know? Ptolemy's now is 15% armor, 15% crit chance on top of it, and 100% bonus damage. Oh, sorry, not bonus. The splash damage protection. And this one would be like, goddamn, the like Gastraphetes before were already really strong. With after this rework, like, I'm sorry, that's just overpowered. That's just overpowered. And I just wanna mention it. Okay, let me just pull up the calculator here. Okay. So, with the let's take it. Okay, we got the Sohrab. Okay, so that's 50% extra damage against buildings. Then we got the piercing frost arrows, and now we got the Ptolemy's buff, which I'm gonna say the arrows give 7%, so it's a little bit easier to count it, which means 22% ignore armor. Let's take it against buildings. You know how much is it? It's 4 times, so 88% extra damage. And then they also got the 15% crit chance. So if we take it, now they do more than 200% extra damage to buildings. More than 200%. Remember, Greeks also get the Greek fire tag for extra damage against buildings, like another 50%. And you just get more than 200% extra just because of these changes, you know, like adding Sohrab, piercing frost arrows plus the absolute rework for Ptolemy's with the crit chance on top of it. More than 200% extra damage against buildings. Yeah, it's just insane. Okay, and then just few items that I have to mention. Marduk's belly bow, which in my opinion, like, okay, it exists, but I would say, yeah, that's not the biggest deal. Marduk's belt, however, is big deal because that definitely helps a lot of those slower attacking ranged units, and definitely offers, you know, like the damage output without increasing the cost for the ranged units. And then of course the Marduk for all those ranged units that use the shield, especially like war chariots and carpentoms after the change, adding the gear slot. And then of course some legendary craftable Anubis sling for the slingers, which in my opinion, luckily is still pretty expensive sling to craft, but still, that sling overshadows any other sling in the game. 40% extra maximum range, like, come on. Okay, that's just insane. Let me just close these windows and let's get into the quest, because goddamn, I've been talking for so long. But let's be honest, no other units got so much love as, let's say, the Babylonian chariots, Gastraphetes. And I'd have to say even the Indian blade chariots got like so much love because of their choose one take, but that's just part of the Indians. But yeah, Gastraphetes, the Babylonian chariots, those two in my opinion. The war chariots also, like, but no, we got a nerf Finulfer because goddamn horsemen feel a little bit too much, you know, like. Okay, so we're going for Alfheim again. I made few changes in comparison to the previous build. So yes, I replaced the Delian Perceptor with the Arrows of the Piercing Frost. As you can see, same damage, but the Ignore Armor is there and slightly lower range. Should be completely fine though. Then I've changed the Advisors for H3, H4. So we're going with Sohrab for the extra building damage and Ptolemy's, because goddamn, why not, you know? Like, good thing that Toxotes got removed from that Ptolemy's buff, but yeah, whatever. So we are going into this. Let me show you how stupidly strong the Gastraphetes are now. Again, I definitely suggest watching the previous video so you can actually see how long it took me and why it took me so long. Because most of the time I just spent destroying the buildings, the walls, the towers, the fortresses. Like, there's a lot of those right here. And so any extra damage against those definitely helps. Like, just the 50% from Sohrab already means that it will take me like 33% less time to destroy those. Now 33% less time means 33% less shots. And it's just from that, okay? But then you have the piercing frost arrows with Ptolemy's, which is like 88%. And that's getting closer to half the amount of time. So 1/3 less, then 50% less, you know? And suddenly we are already talking about 1/3, you know? Like 1/3 of the previous time, and you will see it, like how strong it is. Like whenever I say like, hey, this is actually too much, I seriously mean it. Like I'll be honest, I saw that I was using the 8% and I already felt like, you know, this could use some small nerf, but it's because of the piercing frost arrows, because goddamn. But okay, if we are not gonna change the piercing frost arrows, then let's just rework Ptolemy's and reduce the armor. But no. We got buff. And if the information I got is actually correct, the reason for buffing Ptolemy's would be because Gastraphetes were not popular. And if you ask me, I'm gonna say it, like, I seriously need to say it. That is one of the dumbest reasons to buff something at all. One of the dumbest reasons. I'm not joking when I say that. I seriously mean it. Buffing something just because people are not really picking it? I'm sorry, but in my opinion, just because something is not popular, that's not a reason to buff something. You should be asking why it's not popular. And not like, let's buff it because it's not popular. You know? Because then we are creating these like goddamn stupid situations. Yeah, and I'm looking forward to another argument. Oh, you've been playing this game for so long, you know, like, well, maybe I've played this game for so long, but I definitely can say that I see this because I've played this for so long. Okay, you're done. Let's build these. So yeah, because I played for so long, goddamn, what a bad argument. Like, just because I played the game for so long doesn't mean like I'm not correct about it, because I know how to goddamn use it. Like, yeah, someone could be like arguing like, yeah, and you know, like players who were not playing for so long, like, are not able to utilize it. Well, they don't really. A lot of times, I have to say, they would not even care, you know. Or rather, they don't know how to be like efficient enough to fully utilize it, you know. But buffing it just because we can buff it, like, come on. What do I need? I need gold. Just a few more. Build. There you go. Let's go H up. Need to hurry up a little bit. Get those houses. Okay. Upgrade this. Should be enough. Okay, you come here. Let's build up. Okay. What do I need? Tech. Excellent. I can probably grab this for now. Down here. Okay, let's go here. Buff. And buff, sure. A little bit late, but okay. Now I need you, and I need food and gold. Okay, gold is coming. Not a problem. Let's get these before the dogs get over here. Okay, done. Let's age up then. Get this upgrade, and let's just buff the damage, you know, like, because why not? We can do that. There are the dogs, so we should be getting there soon enough. We don't need this. Ready then? You can start mining here. Excellent. Let's get first Gastras for the defense. Because they will be sending units, I bet, soon enough. Okay, this upgrade, this. Still pretty fast, you know, 8 minutes in, already got it. Just look at that, 22% ignore armor. Like, one of the reasons I don't want to see too much ignore armor on ranged units is just they are going to destroy buildings so fast. Siege units, navy, you know, and like overall any anti-ranged unit in general, you know. It's not fun, like when you have a unit that can kill everything. Just look at the damage right now. That's not that too bad, right? There is some pierce armor, but you won't really see it on that much. Okay, get the champion. Okay, you're done. Get on the wood. Let's buff this. Champion upgrade is there. Alrighty, let's get these. Okay, let's get some watch posts around, because why not? Okay, we got these. I just need more population space. But we can always start sieging. Like, this is more than enough. Just look at the damage against the tower. Look how quickly it goes down. And it's a full army, you know. Look how quickly they went down, you know, and that was not a small army, you know. Look how quickly the fortress goes down, you know? And fortress is down, you know? You see already the difference? You to build few towers. I need some stone.
Piano.
These final upgrades. Okay, let's get the army. It's fine.
Piano.
Okay, let's go. Look, half of the tower HP, you know, and it was like, you know, half the army. Like seriously, if you haven't watched the previous video, just check it out and see how long it took me to like deal with it, because I had to like destroy so many of those towers. Like, no real threat, you know? Get some. Right, you. Like, who cares? They can keep coming. Like, how quickly they are dying, you know? down. Just look at it. How quickly did we clear this? We're 17 minutes in. Already cleared this. Like it's nothing. Now all we need to do is go. Jeez, you know, like remember that those buildings have 0.8 pierce armor, so they should be soaking like 5 times the amount of damage. You should be doing 50,000 damage to those, just to break the wall, you know, or the fortresses, you know, like that should be more than 100,000. You look at this and it's like, you know, 75. Almost 100, so 7,500 times 2, okay, so 15,000. Like it should still take like 8 seconds, you know. Destroy a fortress, you know. Okay, let's split up. Because we have a treasure camp to take. Let's take it. You come on. Just look at that, you know, like it's nothing. Those buildings are nothing. So mean. I don't know where they're going, but they're about to die. Okay. Just make sure no TC here. Seems like it. I'm not sure where they're going. She is down. They'll go. keep going. What are you doing there? Come on. Oof, one volley. One volley. What is your problem? I know I'm your problem, but come on. Why are you over there? And dog is down. And there you go. So if you ask me, a lot faster than it was before, and you can see it. Just the building destruction is so much stronger. Less worried about the units, you know, so you don't have to like run back all the time so much. Doesn't hurt, but it's definitely not as necessary. And this just shows you like how strong the goddamn iron armor on ranged units can be. Like we saw it, they barely got to me. If I was paying attention, they would never get to me almost. I have no idea what they are doing here, to be honest. Just look at the amount of damage the fortress takes, you know? That's not all of them attacking. It's kind of shit. Let's see how much damage will it take. Like 140 per shot, you know? That's not a small amount. That's almost double what those units are supposed to do, you know? Just the base damage. So it's like, okay. It's per shot, of course, because there is also like, you know... You know, it's not like damage per hit, but per second, so of course. But still, like 140, you know, like, okay, if I had to do like 150, it should be like 1/5 of that, like 30 damage. And if it took me like 2-3 seconds, it's still a lot, you know, way a lot. Not too worried, okay. Anyway, I'll grab the last treasure camp and then let's take a look at the rewards. Okay, last one. Is that 4? Excellent. So here you could see like what happens when I change like 2 advisors and 1 arrow, you know, 1 item.
Let's get the work.
Whatever. So yeah, 2 advisors, Sohrab, and now the reworked Ptolemais, piercing frost arrows. Like put it all together, huge impact. You know, that's a huge impact. And goddamn, just imagine what the Indians can do just because they get to choose one thing. Oh boy. Yeah, so if you ask me, there, I dare to say no other units got like so much love, other than like the ranged death balls. Like goddamn, Gastras, Babylonian chariots, now even Indian chariots, the Babylonian war chariots. You know, like goddamn. And I dare to say, you know, like the anti-ranged range rework. Like sure, it buffed the enemy anti-ranged units, but overall, who is it gonna really help against? Definitely not against Gastras. Gastras kill them before they reach them, you know? So, if you ask me, yeah. Ranged death balls, just too strong right now. But no, we got a nerf Finulfer. I told you it's a bad joke. Anyway, hope you enjoyed this. So, yeah. Tell me what you think. I hope you watched the previous one. If you haven't, make sure to check it out. The classic ranged death ball build, where I did the same quest, Gastras, different advisors a little bit for H3, H4, and then the Delian Perceptor arrows instead of the Piercing Frost arrows. And you can see the comparison, like how quickly did I destroy buildings before, how quickly you destroy it now with Gastras. Sure, maybe not like that fast with Babylonian chariots, but remember Babylonian chariots, because they are free pop, there's a lot less units, so it's easier to make them all attack the same target, because now you don't have to like, you know, care about the space around the target that much, so also helps a lot. But yeah, hope you enjoyed this. If you did, press the like button. If you tell me what do you think, you know, like leave a comment. Like I want to know your opinion, because goddamn, I just you know, I'm not really against like buffing ranged dev balls and like ranged units overall, but it just feels like overall the buffs have been just, I don't know if I would say more lazy or just more dumb. I feel like it's a combination of both to some degree. But yeah, like goddamn, just the release of Piercing Frost arrows, you know, like that was like that one milestone where I feel like, man, who's like making these decisions now? Because I feel like goddamn, those Piercing Frost arrows, like, nah, just gonna say, ever since they got released, best arrows in the game. No other arrows come really close, unless you want something very niche, like let's say health. Like okay, anti-ship damage, but still the Piercing Frost arrows get really close, you know. Like it's hard to like. I got them. Every single arrow just got overshadowed by that one release. That's my opinion. That's how I see it, and even the numbers will tell you the same story pretty much. But anyway, like, subscribe if you haven't already. This was Psychosaurus. I'll see you next time. Bye.